Hey guys, I hope you're having a great week. I am here today to congratulate you on something. This week marks the 100th day of school. I believe it's Thursday, which is super awesome. So whether you have been at home some or all of the time, or in the school building most of the time, you have completed 100 days worth of school. And that's a big deal. And as we're moving from the end of our composers and music history movement, I want to do our very last one, which brings us up to present day now. The very last time frame we're going to talk about is modern classical music. Now, the modern period right here started in 1900 and goes till now. So we're all currently considered modern classical music. And the composer that we're going to talk about today, his name is Aaron Copland. Now, he is one of the most famous modern classical conductors and composers. He was originally born in New York City, but one really cool thing about Aaron Copland, he is the son of an immigrant. His dad came over here on a boat, I believe originally from like Russia, and he immigrated to this country. So Aaron was the very first generation of Americans from an immigrant family. And there are a lot of people in the United States that way because it's kind of a melting pot. People from all over the world, we can all trace our families back to ancestors that came from other countries, which is kind of cool. So he's the first composer we're talking about that's an American composer. And his style of music is kind of what we consider American sounding music. When you hear his song today, I think you'll know exactly what I mean. But so Aaron grew up in New York City. His mom and his sister were really passionate about him having the option to explore music. And by age 15, he knew that that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to be a composer. So he went actually to France to go study with several teachers there. And he got a little bit frustrated. Some of his teachers, and this was kind of common, a lot of composition, so composer teachers that taught you how to write music were really big on old classics. And classics obviously are good. We've been talking about them, right? And so he was studying the music of Bach, of Beethoven, of Mozart, and all of these different composers. And while they were good, he just didn't feel like that was his style. That wasn't what he wanted to create because he'd feel like he was recreating somebody else's music. So he got the chance to study with this female teacher, and that's a big deal. Remember, we haven't had a lot of female teachers. That wasn't really common up to this time. Even within like our grandparents' lifetime in the modern period, it wasn't common for women to teach men, especially about something like composition. So his teacher, Miss Nadia Boulanger, I think that's how you say her last name, she was a teacher in France, and he started to study with her. And he even, like, throughout his life, he goes back and talks about how influential and important she was in his life and in the way that he learned about composition and how to create music that was inspiring and connective with the audience. Now, modern music, modern classical music, what we're talking about today, it's a little bit different than some of the pieces that we've listened to in the past. When you think of modern classical music, you probably think of one of two things. Either you think of music that feels very accidental. So some people will say, oh, modern classical music, it's all like this crazy sounding stuff, sci-fi and aliens, and it sounds like somebody's just falling down the stairs with instruments strapped to them. You never know what's happening. And there's a place for that, right? That modern creative energy where you just kind of let stuff happen and then somebody recorded it, and that's what the classical piece sounds like. Those are real pieces. But the other side of modern classical music is like what we think of in film scores. Think for a second about your favorite movie. You have it? Think about that movie and now see if there's a tune that comes to mind, a song that connects with that movie. Think like Harry Potter. You probably have a song pop into your head, right? Star Wars, Indiana Jones, any Disney movie. All of these movies, even if it's not a musical, they have scores, right? The score, the soundtrack to the movie, which you can purchase and listen to separately. And most of the time, those scores, the music for that, is classical music. It doesn't have words, and it was performed by an orchestra. That is what Aaron Copland, this dude that we're talking about, got famous for. He was one of the first classical modern composers that not only wrote music for orchestras and became a teacher and did all these cool regular classical music things, he also started writing film scores, music specifically for movies, music specifically for events. The piece we're going to listen to today is his Rodeo Hoedown. Now, if you know what either of those words mean, you're probably thinking like Wild West. And I promise, every time I hear this song, it makes me want to like put some chaps on and go ride a horse, because it feels like you're in the Wild West somewhere. You're in a Western movie. And that's really kind of cool. That's fun. This piece was just written for an orchestra, but it embodies that sound, that very American feel. And that's something he was famous for. So I love that about Aaron Copland, and I hope you enjoy that piece. But I want to talk to you about the orchestra itself for the modern period. Now, we know that there's always going to be string instruments. That's the yellow part. This next section that's kind of red or pink, that's your woodwinds. It's really similar to what we've talked about in the past. That group and this group, while they've kind of separated out a little bit and had more separation between parts, they're pretty much the same. We have added the harp. So the harp is now added to the orchestra. Even if it was in there in the past, it wasn't necessarily an orchestra instrument. And then you have like the horns and the brass section. That's the green. And in the back you have the percussion. Okay, so along with this one that's not pictured here is the piano. Now we don't really think of that as a classical orchestration instrument, right? That's kind of a separate thing, but a lot of orchestras today have either or both a big piano and a keyboard, because those can make different sounds, and you're going to see that in Aaron Copland's the Rodeo Hoedown piece that you're going to listen to, which is really cool. Okay, so you're going to watch the Hoedown, and then you've got the two House of Sound videos for brass and percussion. And then I put a couple other pieces in there that I hope you have a chance to look at. One is the song Pomp and Circumstance, which is a song that wasn't written by Copland, but it was written during the modern period. And it's kind of fun. It's from Fantasia 2000, and it's that whole song. It's kind of what we think of as the graduation song, and they have animated to go with it. So you're watching a story but listening to Pomp and Circumstance, which is another classic song for this time frame in modern music history. And then your last option is I've put a link to Hedwig's theme from Harry Potter, and it's performed by a youth orchestra, which is really, really cool. So if you have the option, I would love for you guys to watch those videos and enjoy. If you have any questions about a specific composer or a certain piece, or really anything music in general, feel free to either have your teacher ask me or send me a little note, and I will try and answer those questions. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Happy 100th day of school, guys. Bye-bye.